Um, so welcome everybody. I think I know most people on this list that have joined us. I am Stephanie Forstner Dankos. I'm the director of the BS in Pharmaceutical Science program here at URI. And I'm very excited for this panel tonight of relatively recent alumni from the program that I think most of you are all in right now. Um, so I'm going to hand it over to Hannah, who is going to be our moderator for today. And I'll let her introduce herself and then the other panelists, and then we'll get started. So I'm going to hide myself so that the important people can be.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah. Like Dr. Dankos said, I'm the moderator for tonight. But I did also graduate from URI in the BSPS program, so I can kind of contribute when needed. So I graduated May of 2024, and I'm currently still at URI. I was in the accelerated bachelor's to master's program, so I'll be graduating again this upcoming May with my master's. And you guys can just introduce yourself, really.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go. My
All
name
right.
is Maeve. I also graduated with Hannah in May of 2024 from the BSPS program. So my little friend here, I guess. But I now work at a clinical research organization called Rhode. It's out of Durham, North Carolina, but it's a remote position, and I'm an in-house CRA for that job that I have there. So yeah.
I can go next.
Haley.
Sure. Hi, I'm Caitlin. I graduated in 2018. I worked for quite a while, about 6 years, at a few startups, before going back to grad school this year, where I'm at the University of Virginia studying biomedical engineering.
And I'm Alex Wharton. I graduated in 2019. I went to a few pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer and Charles River and whatnot. Eventually got into the recreational cannabis manufacturing. Our most recent one was Pioneer Valley Extracts in Northampton, Massachusetts. And we just sold, so now we're on to the next one.
Nice. All right. So to start off with our questions for tonight, just wanted each of you to touch on why you specifically chose the BSPS program with regards to like other STEM-oriented majors that you or I might have to offer.
So I have an interesting story. I actually transferred to URI into BSPS, and I knew I was going to transfer during my freshman year. But I really enjoyed my chemistry class. And so I actually set up a meeting with my professor and I said, I really like your class. I'm thinking about majoring in chemistry, and might be controversial advice, but he said, don't major in chemistry. If you're interested in pharmaceuticals, do something more, I guess, applied. So when I was looking at transfer programs, I was looking at different majors. I thought about biomedical engineering, but that wasn't exactly what I wanted at the time. And I was specifically interested in pharmaceuticals, and that's how I came across URI, and I decided to transfer to URI and join the BSPS program, which was extremely valuable and really was the applied chemistry and with the addition of the biology that I was looking for.
Nice. I also thought about majoring in chemistry when I was a senior in high school and thought the BSPS program was more of a straight shot to where I wanted to be. So
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I actually did the same thing. I always loved science and chemistry. I went in as a biological sciences major, and then I quickly realized that it was not what I wanted to do. I thought it was something different, but you find out really quick what the classes are all about. I chose BSPS because after talking with Aaron Edmonds, who I believe is still there, we basically talked a lot about kind of what I wanted to do, and I think it was really going into medicines and kind of how drugs work and helping people. So I think drug development, pharmaceuticals, that sort of thing, what closely fit that criteria was BSPS. And I think a lot of the courses in kind of that curriculum let you expand on whatever you're looking for in the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, I agree. I had a very similar kind of concept as Alex. I actually went in for biological sciences as well. But I knew my strengths were definitely in biochemistry. So I didn't even know the BSPS program existed until my friend told me. But I just knew I didn't want to be like a CVS pharmacist, as I feel like what a lot of people think our major is. So that kind of turned me away and I didn't know it existed. And then once I realized it did, it was kind of a perfect fit. So.
Yeah, awesome. All great pathways. So reflecting on your time in your undergrad, do any of you have any certain experiences or opportunities that you would like to shine upon? Any internships or research experiences, if you've studied abroad, anything like that?
Yeah. I was telling you guys before this meeting, but I think it was something to where the biggest thing I think in URI and especially in BSPS is getting connected with not only your professors but the doctorates. I was fortunate enough to meet with man named Nick De Silva, who was going for his doctorate at the time, and we did a hepatic cancer research lab that he was doing for his doctoral review. And then I also worked with Dr. Riley Kirk, going into the herbal medicines garden to basically do HPLC analysis on what some of the medicines and pathways can be for some of the plants out there. And I think that those opportunities, I was definitely a younger, having more fun type of person when I came into URI. And I think that once you start connecting with a lot of your professors and getting into some of that research and opportunities that you can have at the university, I think it really cements kind of what you're looking for and kind of adds a lot of intriguing values to what you can learn. So that's what I did, but I think that it's something to where everyone kind of should do that because, it really boosts where you are and gives you the motivation to keep going.
I would agree with that. I don't think I did enough of that during my undergrad. I did some work with Dr. Chen in his lab, but I didn't do a ton of undergraduate research. I connected with professors in classes, but totally, I think I probably would have gone to grad school sooner if I had taken advantage of that a bit more during undergrad. But being a transfer student, I was like a little bit behind, so I was always having a really packed schedule. But I did have the opportunity my last semester to intern for credit at Rhodes Pharmaceuticals, which is up in Coventry, West Fork kind of line. And that was a great introduction to just the pharmaceutical industry. It was generic, so it was a bit different than the drug development that I worked on post grad, but I still take lessons and I guess topics that I learned at that internship into the research that I did and the work that I did in industry, specifically things related to like regulatory affairs, reverse engineering, kind of making sure generics are equivalent to the name brand. So it was a valuable experience and gave me a sense of what different job options are out there. And ultimately, I did go into a different area, but it was something that I liked and I considered at the time and valuable experience all around.
Yeah, I would say I did do an independent study is what they like call it now, but just research on campus, I guess. I did that my sophomore year and it was super cool, great experience. And I mean, you get a lot out of that. It's a really good resume builder as well, but it definitely taught me personally that I'm not a lab scientist, which those things are good to know, like what you're good at and what you don't like are just as important and sounds cheesy, but it's so true. So that definitely turned me away from grad school and like that path after college. And so I looked more into like larger scale, more tangible research, I guess. That's kind of a bad way to say it, but so I went down the clinical research path where like I personally feel like I was able to like see the medicine actually working or the treatments really working. So I really focused on finding research experience that pertained more to the clinical aspect. So I got a remote CRO internship. So that's kind of more just like managing of clinical trials. And then I got another internship on site at Butler Hospital, which is a psychiatric hospital in Providence, Rhode Island. And that was where I was like seeing patients. So that end of the spectrum. And all of them were really critical. Even the lab work was critical, teaching me what I liked and what I didn't, and kind of morphed me to go more in the other direction. But I would say the biggest thing that I took away was utilizing Erin Edmonds. She definitely helped me so much and gave me so much guidance through that. So that's kind of like a tip that I would say for that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like finding the specific path just by trying out anything and everything while you're in undergrad is just such a great experience so that you can figure out what you actually want to do once you're out of your undergrad.
Yeah, when people ask me about my undergrad degree, I always say it was such a great opportunity to see everything that exists in, I guess, the world of pharmaceuticals. But then for me at the end, I was like, okay, I know generally what I like, but I think if I had done more research and talked to more professors, I would have had a better idea.
Yeah,
But I
I think it's
appreciate the broad view.
I think it's also great for networking, and I wish I did more of that. Now that you're out in the field, I'm like, oh, it's where like Erin Edmonds, can't say enough good things about her. She knows everybody. You talk to,
Yes.
you talk to Dr. Serum, all these other people, and depending on what you like, and when you start finding your niche, this is where, those connections can get you a job, can get you the interview, can get, your foot in the door. And that's to where, in the beginning you're a little bit timid, school's is kind of school, and then it's something to where once you start finding your niche and you start taking, it as seriously as you can, these people are, leaps and bounds ahead of you, and you don't realize it until it's too late. So I think the biggest piece of advice is to really lean into your courses, lean into your professors, lean into, the people surrounding you, and, don't be afraid to reach out to see what they're doing, to see who they know. Because like Rhodes Pharmaceuticals and all of that, I remember it was tough to get, back when I graduated. But I'm sure, that some people there had a few people working there, or if I knew Caitlin then, it's all about people before you, your professors and stuff like that. And connections are gonna make or break, most of the people in this industry.
Yeah, I actually had a classmate who I finished my internship. I had known her, she was in BSPS, not a very large class, but we had been interning at the same time at different classes. So we were, or different companies doing discussion posts. And then she ended up applying to Rhodes postgrad, and she reached out to me asking for advice or kind of just getting a sense of what the job would be like to see if she would like it. And she did end up working there after. So I could say nice things about her to people at Rhodes, and then also tell her a little about the people she was interviewing with. So it was definitely a testament to the power of networking.
100%.
Can definitely agree with all of that. So to move on a little bit more into the BSPS curriculum, do you guys want to just touch upon the coursework and maybe some things that stood out to you or like electives that you might have taken that helped you choose your career paths or anything like that?
Caitlin, you can go first.
Okay, sure. I would say that the first year that you're actually in the College of Pharmacy and not in a university college, that was the toughest in terms of coursework. Your schedule's pretty packed. You have some extra time in your schedule, particularly maybe the second semester, but it was my senior year where I had a lot more freedom to decide what classes I wanted to take and then also look at different opportunities outside of typical classes. Um, in that year, I, picked up a biological sciences minor because I was interested in things related to infectious disease. So I took a few classes there. And so then I realized I was Bio 102 class away from a biological sciences minor. So then I picked that up. And then also, like I mentioned, I was able to do an internship during the semester for credit, which I thought was really important for me because I didn't have a lot of practical experience. And the labs that you take as part of your curriculum are very different than what it's like to actually work in a lab. So I wanted to get an idea of what it looked like actually working in a lab, because when I was applying for jobs, I applied I cast a wide net, some lab-based, some like quality, regulatory affairs, because we did have that introduction, and I guess, an understanding of it from my coursework, but I really thought that I wanted to work in a lab. So actually working in a lab, I was able to confirm that and kind of narrow my job search and career goals after.
Yeah, I think I did pretty much the same thing. I thought I agree that once you actually become part of the BSPS, curriculum, it is very tough. I mean, organic chemistry is so hard to grasp, and then once you grasp it, you feel like you're reading a different language. So it was a ton of fun, but it's something to where it's very hard, but it's something to where it's very rewarding. And then once you get into those, as I was talking about, niche classes, I remember Dr. Serum, I think, had an herbal medicines class that kind of changed my life, and how I looked at medicines rather than the pharmaceutical way, more of a Chinese or sort of medicine. So I think it really gives you great opportunity. I did the same thing as Caitlin, to where I started in biological sciences, but then ended up double majoring in biological sciences as well as BSPS, just because I had so many courses, so many credits already. But it's something to where once you get into those, I think the biggest ones that help you, as Caitlin was saying, is your labs, because it's much different, but it's great because it gives you a wide net. Excuse me, as Caitlin said, to know at least how to operate within a laboratory setting. Again, especially in my industry of cannabis, you see people all the time who don't know what PPE is, don't know what an SDS sheet is, do a lot of things the incorrect way. So I think that it's something to where your labs are the biggest thing that are going to set you up for success in your actual workflow and in the workplace. And then it's really the basics are the basics, organic chemistry, stuff like that. But then once you get into actually your niche and start specializing in these things, like for me, herbal medicines, that's really kind of what can set you apart and motivate you to work harder.
No, I definitely agree that junior year, when you're finally in the program, is probably the most robust in terms of coursework, and it's just that much harder than all your other hard classes, I guess. I would definitely say like learning how to study was super important. I think people just immediately think flashcards. When you're learning things like pharmacology was probably my favorite or one of my favorite classes, and that's very memorization heavy, I would say. But I think understanding it is just as important, and it makes it easier to memorize. So like learning how you learn is probably the best bet. And that's something that I really developed my junior year at URI. And as for like flexibility and stuff, I think there's definitely room to do other things. Like I know Caitlin and Alex had talked about like touching on doing minors and clubs and stuff. Like there's definitely ways to work that into the schedule. Again, it just strengthens your time management skills and learning how to prioritize things, and that's stuff that like you take away to your real world and you don't realize you're learning it when you're in school. But I have to prioritize workload every day, and what's more important than the next, what can be pushed out to the next day. So it's funny, but like using a planner in college and writing out what you need to get done and what's most important and when's your club starting. So learning how to prioritize things and use your time management skills is something that definitely comes with that.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with that. And also for the flexibility as well. That's one of my favorite parts about the curriculum, because you're able to go into what you want to specialize in the future. And the addition of minors is also very beneficial. Like I only had to take one extra course to get a chemistry minor and one extra bio course to get a bio minor. And then also I am in the accelerated bachelor's to master's program, so I was able to take a lot of my graduate courses during my senior year just because of that flexibility within the curriculum. So it's just really beneficial to tailor it to you specifically.
Yeah, I also had friends who did business minors
Mhm.
because they were interested in things like pharmaceutical sales, and the schedule definitely, or the curriculum definitely allowed for that to happen without it being, I guess, too much extra. Definitely feasible, and there were quite a few people in my year who did it.
Mhm. All right. So, Caitlin, do you want to talk about maybe why you went back for graduate school, or maybe just that transition from undergrad to work back to graduate school?
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to go to grad school when I was finishing up undergrad, but I didn't really know exactly in what, I guess, program I wanted to go into and what I enjoyed researching and what subject areas I wanted to look into. So I decided that I was going to work for a little bit, kind of narrow my programs of interest before going back to school. But then I was involved in a rare disease startup, and I was, I guess, really, it's one of the projects I'm more passionate about. So we really had a great opportunity to get to know the patient population and see the reward. Um, of our work and how it was helping people. And then COVID happened, so then I was like, okay, I'm not going to go back now. And then I was working in um, immunology, cancer vaccines, infectious disease, and that's kind of where I found my scientific passion of the immune system in, I guess, the context of cancer, then also infectious disease. And that's when I really started to decide that I was going to go back to grad school. And at the company I was working on cancer vaccines with, there were a lot of people fresh out of grad school, very willing to talk about their experiences, and with kind of a diverse skill set and background. I talked to some people who were some pretty, I guess, focused in immunology specifically, but then my manager was a biomedical engineer. And that's when I decided or figured out that I was kind of introduced or interested in the technology development, problem solving, I guess, capacity of engineering. And that's why I decided to apply into biomedical engineering specifically. I would say another thing, just working in industry, knowing that if I wanted to be running my own projects in a certain capacity, I could do that with a bachelor's degree. But I felt like I could learn a little bit more about running my own projects and get some technical skills out of grad school, but then also those non-technical soft skills, learning things like scientific communication, publishing, um, kind of how to drive and run my own projects from start to finish, much larger projects, because I certainly had a level of freedom after being in industry for 6 years. I got to run my own projects, make my own studies, and gain some independence, but I just felt like I had more that I wanted to learn. And I also working in industry, I'm working with industry scientists. There's the whole other world of academia, and I talked to professors and kind of got a sense of, why did you go into academia? What's your day-to-day like? But I wanted to talk to more people in academia and see why they chose to stay rather than go into industry and get an idea of what it's actually like, because the industry scientists have a reason they went into industry, and sometimes they're very biased and they're like, academia is the worst, don't go back, like don't go into academia. And I just wanted to see the other side also. So I just wanted to I develop as a scientist, but then also kind of see what else is out there.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So, would you guys want to talk about how you transitioned from graduating from this program to getting your first job and what that was all about?
I went pretty quick. I think I got my email for my job on the last day of school, so I wasted no time. But that's kind of always how I had envisioned it. Like some people know they want to go to grad school. I kind of knew I didn't, so I didn't want to waste time. And that's up to everybody's prerogative. Like some people like to take the break. I was ready to make money, so I was applying and ended up landing a position like pretty much right out of school. But the transition was pretty easy. I'd say I work fully remote, so I would say it was easier for me maybe than an older person who was coming into a remote position just because of going through school through COVID and being more equipped to like technology in that sense and how to use technology to go through your day-to-day studies or work or whatever the case is. So my transition was fairly easy. I didn't really have too many hiccups. I would just say that like a really big skill for my job specifically because it's remote is just having really strong like critical thinking skills. So you're not in an office, you can't really turn around and ask your coworker, oh, how do you fix this problem? How, just like the day-to-day questions you might have. Questions are always encouraged, but especially when you're online, it's like you really need to rely on yourself and figure things out a little bit more than relying on other people. So I would say that really developed my critical thinking skills in that way. But other than that, my transition was pretty smooth, I'd say.
Yeah, I basically did the internships during my junior and senior year. And then I was working with Charles River at the time on a toxicology jet study. And after the internship, they liked it, so they brought me on for another year. It was something to where animal colonies just wasn't my thing. I just, it's not for me. So I started looking for another job. I went into pharmaceutical sales after that, and then eventually recreational cannabis manufacturing. I think that kind of as Maeve said, it set you up very well. I think that every single job that you get is going to be some sort of learning curve, no matter what it is. I mean, if you want to be in the lab and you're great at your labs at URI, it will teach you a lot of the technical skills of how to do it. But every single SOP is different. Every single technique is different. You know, people do it a different way. I've been to Pfizer, Amgen, Charles River. Everyone does it a different way, even those pharmaceutical companies. So it's something to where I think URI and specifically the BSPS program gives you great overall skills. And then that again is where you go find what you love to do and start, honing your skills on doing that. And it's also something to where, your first job is your first job. You're never going to be the best right out of the gate. It's really about learning everything you can, as I said, talking with your professors to, get ready for it, but it set you up very well. And I agree. I think the transition was easy enough right out of college.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. The transition, I guess technically I had a lot to learn at my first job, but BSPS taught me critical thinking, perseverance, and set me up to be able to confront these challenges and learn the background science, also the new technical skills. And the biggest thing was just being willing to learn, and being excited and passionate and doing your best. And as long as I was doing that, my managers were always happy. And like Alex said, any job there's gonna be a learning curve. I jumped around a little bit. I was working on protein engineering, and then I was working on rare diseases of mineralization, and then I was working in immunology. And each time I switched areas that I was working in, I had to learn the background science, but that was never really a concern because I felt like coming out of undergrad, I learned a lot of different topics and I knew how I learned best and how to apply what I was learning. So being able to switch was nice to get an idea of what's out there, but intimidating sometimes, but I knew that I could do it because of the skills that I had.
Nice. So going off of that, if you guys want to just talk about what your roles are at your jobs right now and your kind of just day-to-day life at your companies.
Who wants to go first?
I
We need an order for this stuff.
know.
Sure.
I'll go first.
Okay, sure.
I work for a clinical research organization as an in-house CRA. I'm sorry, my lighting keeps changing, but basically within the world of clinical research, so I explain it to people, there's kind of three parties. There's the sponsor, who's the biotech, biopharma company. So those are the Pfizers, the Modernas, like the big names. It's also their smaller companies, but they typically get bought out. And then there's the CRO, which is who I work with, who basically manages and is the middleman of everything that goes on. And then we basically work with the sites. So the sites are all over the country, all over the globe, and they're the people that see the actual patients. So those are kind of the three working parties. So I work in the middle. So I do a lot of like management activities between relaying messages a lot of the time between like meetings we have, decisions that are made with our sponsors. I have to relay that back to the sites. Tracking data, serious adverse events that come in through our data listings every month. I have to keep those up to date. I do a lot of vendor work so because we're a remote company, there are certain things we don't have the capacity to do, such as give a site an ECG machine. So we have to like outsource a company who does that specifically. So I do a lot of management with that. And then I kind of straddle two areas with my position. I do a lot of clinical work, but I also do a lot of project management. So on the flip side of all of that clinical stuff, I also do like invoicing, timeline adjustments of all my projects. I work really closely with the project leads and other leadership roles like that. So it's a little bit of everything. I would definitely say my role, if you're at all interested in clinical research, it's a really good growth opportunity because it's really not meant to be a career. It's really more as like a first starting job, and you get to feel out all the different fields of clinical research because there's so many parties involved that I didn't know about before. Like you have data management, biostatistics, study startup, project management, clinical, that's just within the clinical aspect. There's also other areas of clinical, specifically like regulatory, we call it RS&B, but it's like regulatory strategy and biometric stuff. There's also a whole federal side, but I work in commercial clinical research. So I think it's good. It's a really good starting role. I would say, like, if you're looking for things, I'd look for roles like a research associate or a clinical trial associate. And in-house CRA is basically just I don't travel. I work from home. So yeah, that's kind of like my day-to-day activities that I do. Lots of meetings also to be included. But
All right, I'll go next then. Right now, we just sold my last company, but I was the director of extraction sciences and part owner. Again, I'm in recreational cannabis manufacturing. So basically that day to day would be kind of wearing a lot of hats. The cannabis market's very new and it's still in its infancy. So there's not a lot of hierarchy unless you're in an MSO or multi-state operator. So basically, I wore every hat that I could. So basically, what a manufacturing facility would do is basically take biomass or the plant material and then extract it and formulate it into all of the things that you see, such as cartridges, edibles, salves, you name it, we make it. Basically, where this comes into BSPS is that it would be just like running a lab in URI. So a lot of it's rotary evaporation for solvent recovery. A lot of it's distillation. A lot of it is extraction using polar and non-polar solvents. To where you can go down the line through winterization and lipid removal. A lot of it is running that stuff. Because I worked my way to be the director and part owner, we started to do a lot of QA, QC, and product formulation, which was a lot more fun rather than getting dirty and doing the stuff that is very fun in the beginning. I can't lie, it's better than most jobs I've had. But we started doing product formulation and kind of coming out with new delivery mechanisms and whatnot. And I think that was kind of where I strive and hit my pace, and that's why we just sold. So I just started Wharton Enterprises, which is basically a consulting firm to go to new and emerging markets to basically show them how to scale and how to do optimization of SOPs.
So I can talk to a little bit about what my day-to-day was like in industry and then also grad school. So in industry, I worked at a startup, so similar to us saying in both Alex and me, I wore a lot of hats. I did some method development for assays related to manufacturing and quality. I also processed preclinical study samples to help support regulatory filings. And then there was another, I guess, portion of just doing general research, trying to understand the mechanism of action of the drug and the relevant pathways and what's going on. Yes, a lot of meetings. I think when I was going to science, I was like, oh, great, a job where I don't have to public speak, but that's not the case at all. You have to communicate your science to other scientists and then also throughout the company, non-scientists. So that becomes an important part of your job, is being able to do the science, but also communicate it, whether it's verbally, through papers, laboratory notebooks, just making sure everything's well documented and communicated in order to push the projects forward. And then in grad school, so right now I am still taking classes. I'm early on and I'm rotating through 2 labs. Surprisingly, there is a lot of freedom. I only have class a few days a week, and the other portion I'm just doing my research. There's a lot of independence. I would say in industry, I had a manager who was telling me these are the things that we need to address, but I had the freedom to design studies or experiments to address those concerns or topics. But in grad school, it's really I'm driving everything. I have a principal investigator, PI, who is, this is the topic and a little bit of guidance, but really it's you're on your own. This is a learning opportunity. Let me know if you need help, but it's up to the discretion of the student to kind of decide how they steer things and how much help they get.
Yeah, definitely a wide range of careers here, which I think just shows that the program just sets you up for really whatever you are passionate about. Um, so thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to ask one more question before we open it up to the audience for questions. So does everyone want to just share some advice for either prospective or current students?
I'll go. I have a good piece of
Yes.
advice that I actually learned from Erin Edmonds. So I tell people this all the time. I have a lot of my friends who are struggling to get jobs after school. So I would definitely say experience. So utilizing her in that aspect as much like what Alex said, like networking with your professors is super important. Like they might know somebody who knows somebody who has a company just what you're looking for. So just being friendly and open to having conversations with people. I think knowing your interests is also important, but don't be afraid to be turned away from something if it doesn't work out for you, or you're not really like your strengths where your strengths lie. But I will say I took one course with Professor Edmonds, and it was Rhode road trips, and it was a J-term course, and I think it holds 10 students at a time. I'm not really sure. Best course I ever took at URI. Um, you do a lot of professional development. So there's tons of people that look at your resume and give you resume feedback. I think it's a little newer. I don't know if it would have been there when Alex and Caitlin, you guys were there, but you do a ton of professional development. You go through your resumes, you update them, you go through elevator pitches, I guess. So you kind of just like pitch yourself and put all your good qualities in like a 30-second sentence. And also we went through a LinkedIn kind of profile analysis and just how to use LinkedIn 101. And that was so helpful for me. And it's actually how I got my job is somebody came in and just kind of taught us how to use it. And she said, don't be afraid to just reach out to somebody. Like if you're applying to jobs, if you haven't found this out, you will eventually, but just applying is going to get you absolutely nowhere. You really have to put the extra mile in and try to network and try to connect with people to give you a shot, essentially coming right out of college. So I got tired of not hearing back, and I did what I was taught in that class, and you just message and you write a little blurb. Hi, I'm so and so. I'm really interested in this position. I'm qualified. I have great experience. How can I get my resume in front of somebody, or can I talk to you a little bit more about this? Someone read it, answered it, and I was set up with my interview, and that's how I got my job. So I would say be ambitious, be a little bit annoying. Like don't be afraid to like put yourself out there because it'll pay off eventually. And I can guarantee you that applying into those dead end portals is gonna take you way longer and you're gonna get really discouraged.
Yeah, no, and I would definitely agree. I think that's honestly the best advice that you can give anyone you cannot stress enough, because once you leave the university, you realize all the things that you wanted to do. And it really is about networking and everything that she said. And realistically, I think it's a good point to touch on that do the extra work, whether it's extra credit. I remember that I helped pick the herbal garden, and I was sitting there, and I know there was a frat party or this going on, but I did it. And some of those people to this day still reach out to me and have opportunities, can teach me things if I don't know how to go through an SOP, or I'm questioning how to redevelop, a process. They're there. So it's something to where I think that a lot of people, including me at the time, think that, hey, I only want to do the work if it pays off instantaneously, if it's the independent study so I can put it on my resume instantaneously, if, I stay after hours because I get extra credit. I think the biggest success that I've had from URI has been from things that I thought were just helping out people. Things that, hey, someone needed a hand and I helped them out, and they remembered that when I needed help. So it's something to where, like, I gave the example to you guys privately, but someone named Dr. Riley Kirk is one of the biggest people in cannabis right now, because she's very well known and she has very good credentials and knows what she's talking about. She can explain pharmaceutical doctorate, degree level stuff to people who don't have, a middle school or elementary education. So knowing people like that and, networking is huge, but try to do it with everyone, your friends, your professors, people you see who might need help, in the hallway, whatever it is, because you'll never know how big those connections are, until you leave and, someone is somewhere where you want to be.
That's so true. The companies that I worked at post grad, there were just groups of people. Oh, they all worked at this company together. They all went to grad school together. And so when they were hiring, they're like, oh, I know the perfect person for this job. They're a team player. They know their stuff. And so there's a lot of times that the recruiting happens outside of the applications where it's like, I know this person, let me reach out to them. So networking is definitely important. And then my piece of advice would be don't be afraid to fail. We learn a lot from our successes, but we learn a lot from our failures. And as long as you take them in stride with a positive attitude, people are pretty forgiving. I think that there were things that I did that were risks and they didn't always pay off, but then people appreciated the boldness to do it. And then you always learn something. Okay, now we know that that doesn't work. And then maybe the next time that you address it, it does work from when you learn from your failures. So it's scary, but worth it in the end.
That's all really good advice. So thank you guys for that. I want to open it up to the participants here. If you guys want to just unmute yourselves and ask any questions, or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can put it in the chat, and I can kind of moderate that as well. But feel free to ask anything. This is a great time to do that.
I can answer this one. It says, so is it normal to go into a grad programs that's different from your undergrad? I think that it goes both ways. The grad students that I worked with at URI when I was an undergrad, a lot of them were farm sci. But at least my program, there's a focus on bringing diverse backgrounds together to address biomedical problems. So there is a large portion of biomedical engineers in my program, but there's also a wide variety. I'm pharmaceutical sciences, there's biological sciences, chemistry, other STEM majors, but not necessarily all biomedical engineering. So I think that you can continue with your undergrad degree, but a lot of people end up switching when they go to grad school as they learn their new interests in different areas that they're passionate about. I knew I was passionate about translational science, which is why I went into pharmaceutical sciences. But then as I began working, I was also interested in the technology development, problem solving, which is why I pivoted to biomedical engineering.
Yeah, so I'm currently getting my master's in the same pharmaceutical sciences, but even with that, you can get a specialization, which you wouldn't get in an undergrad degree. So it's really just going more in depth into the topic that you are most passionate about. So either way works. It's really just whatever path you're going down.
Yeah, definitely when you're applying to grad school programs, they typically do not have a requirement for a certain type of major. It's just make sure that you have classes in these areas. And as long as you fulfill the prerequisites, then it doesn't matter what your undergrad is.
Yeah, so we have another question about the homework load and when you enter your junior and senior years. So does anyone want to talk about that?
I feel like I remember because it was so fresh, but definitely I would say hefty, but I with that caveat, it's how much you put into it. So you can just read the textbook and show up to class, and that could be it for you, or you could put hours into your notes and studying and really going that like extra mile, which I will say more oftentimes you need to do that if you want to get the grades that, you have to do to get there. So, workload, I would say lots of notes, lots of studying time. I don't think there's a lot of like you need to like do this assignment and turn it in from what I remember. There might be here and there like quizzes and stuff, but those are usually pretty short. The quizzes are pretty like relatively, I would say like 10 questions, like roughly around there. Your exams are obviously a little bit longer. And unless it's like a math-based class, like pharmacokinetics, like usually there's no like homework where you have to sit down and like really work out a problem or anything like that. It's more of just designating big chunks of time to like studying the material, learning the material, memorizing the material, whatever the case is for the specific class. If
I
that
agree.
answers.
I don't feel like I had a lot of assignments I needed to turn in, maybe papers and presentations
Like
sometimes,
here,
but like yeah, but
yeah.
like you said, the majority of my time was just studying. And when the first semester, at least when I was there, I'm not sure if it's the same, we had classes that were like a third of the semester, and so they were changing quickly, and then there were a lot of two credit classes, so then you end up being enrolled in a lot of classes, so there was a lot to keep track of, which is why it took a little bit more time to study because you had a few classes you needed to keep up with. But yeah, like you said, not a ton of submitted
I feel like
assignments.
there's a sprinkle, like you'll maybe do like
Yeah.
once a semester in one class or like a project at the end of the semester. Like those are like separate things. But yeah, I agree. The majority, it's like studying or doing whatever.
Yeah. Maeve, do you want to talk about Grayson is looking about getting an summer internship in clinical trials and just
Oh,
how
yeah.
he might want to go about that?
Um, Again, like I said, I would really talk to Erin Edmonds. She actually helped me a lot. She had a lot of really great connections, and I will say, at least at the time, it was pretty difficult to get my internships. There wasn't that many options out there. People didn't really talk about it too often. But I would say, depending on where your interests are, like you can always reach out to professors. I know Dr. Albert is who I worked for at Butler, and she's always taking students on from farm sci and from neuroscience. So she does a lot of Alzheimer's and dementia research. That's out of Providence. I don't know if she does it for credit or paid, whatever the case is, but I had done mine over the summer, but she might do things like during the school year for credit. But that's just something you'd have to work out with her. She was awesome. She loves giving kids the opportunity to like get that hands-on experience. But I would say looking for CRO experience as well, like while you're looking on LinkedIn, just searching clinical trials and honestly just seeing what pops up. A lot of them aren't really willing to take interns, unfortunately. It's just really hard to get your foot in the door. But I would say if you let Erin know, she's the one that reached out to me and said, we have this guy who emailed us and he's looking for a few interns to help him with his startup. It's a really small CRO. There was like 10 people. and it was a phase 1 study, and I just happened to kind of like be at the right place at the right time, and she knew I was interested, so she connected me with him. But again, like if anybody, this is a good opportunity for networking. We should all add everybody on LinkedIn, because I'd be happy to like reach out and connect with you with him if he's still doing work, or Professor Oliver, whoever, So I would just say keep your eye open and constantly be looking, and definitely utilize talking with Erin and just professors, because not really, there are in-person options, but those would be at hospitals or institutions. That's typically where those take place.
Yeah, I think one more thing to add too is that don't be afraid just to take any opportunity. I know that in the beginning I was like, "Ooh, I really don't want to do that." But it's
Yeah.
something to where you have such a higher probability of getting the one you do want if you say, "Hey, I've already done a semester under this and have a great recommendation letter," or stuff like that. So definitely whatever it is, I remember Erin Edmonds, I'd have to go early and often, is what she would say, because she gets so filled up. Because once people hear about how big of a resource she is, she would have lines out the door of her, office. And I know, Caitlin, I don't know if you had it for your year or any of you guys did, but I think that when I went up to her, she started like a mentor program or
Yeah, I did that.
yeah, yeah, to where I actually had my mentor, Stephen Allen, was a director at Charles River, and that's actually how I got the internship for CRO. But again, can't stress enough, Aaron Edmonds and all of your professors networking. And again, no matter what it is, if you're looking for opportunities, take the first one. If you do have multiple opportunities, that's awesome, and take which one you favor more. But if not, take it and go, because the more experience you have, the better. And it puts you leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. I wish I did internships in independent studies more, and quicker in my university time.
Yeah, a
I
lot of the early opportunities. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. You
They're
can
not
go.
necessarily looking that you have like all the complete relevant experience. They just want to know that you're enthusiastic and willing to learn, and that you're going to be a positive member of the team and you're going to get something out of it. So, like Alex said, just taking any opportunity to be able to develop as a scientist or in whatever area, and be able to have something under your belt and show that you are excited and willing to work.
Yeah. Just to say, I know Erin Edmonds has transferred to cells, so I don't think she works directly with
No.
the BSPS program anymore.
No.
I know there is definitely someone
Stop.
who is going to be taking her place, and I'm sure they'll be just as amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
Whoever that is, reach out to them.
Yeah,
Horrible.
I was just say, still reach out to Aaron just to find
Yeah,
out who her
regardless.
replacer is.
Yeah.
Oh no.
all right. Just to touch on the last few questions about internships and reaching out to professors about research opportunities. I know I always give advice that do it as soon as possible. It's never too early to start. That's something I wish I would have started earlier, was just like reaching out to professors as a freshman. It's not necessary, but again, it just puts you ahead and gives you more experience. So I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add to that, but
Yeah, no, but both of these questions, should I worry about internships now as a freshman? Yes. I mean, it's not something that's critical, but again, all four of us are sitting here saying, if I knew the first day I walked onto campus that I could, rely on my professors, the people around me, stuff like that, I would have done school completely differently. So it's not a bad thing if you don't, get an internship or start reaching out and networking the first day in, your freshman year. But it's something to where we're all saying the same thing. The more time that you have to network, gain experience, stuff like that. If you're a freshman and you're in an independent study or an internship, your sophomore year, you're getting the best internship opportunity or independent study, to where all of my friends and me were in our junior year getting, whatever's left. So it's something to where, again, those stepping stones, taking them early and often, with whoever Aaron Edmonds' replacement is.
No, I would say also, I completely agree with Alex. Like starting earlier is obviously better in almost any case, but scheduling wise, I know I think to graduate now we had to do like a certain amount of credits of independent study, and I that was implemented my junior year, but I
Mhm.
started my independent study my sophomore year, and I did 2 semesters of 10 credits each, and I was done with my credits going into my junior year, just unknowingly that that was going to be a factor of my graduation. And so everybody who hadn't done that was scrambling to fit into all these labs, and you're scheduling your junior year, you can't pick and choose when your classes are, so it's harder to get those 10 credits in when, you know, you have back-to-back classes your junior year. So I would definitely say earlier the better.
I had people in my year that they started their independent studies early and they remained with the same professor the whole time. And they got to the point that they were actually running their own projects and doing their own research. And I think someone in my class even had like a small grant from within the university to do their own research. So when you have more research experience and established relationship with professors and the department, you have more opportunities to kind of do exciting new things and build your resume in that way.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with all of that. So definitely take our advice because it's all stuff that we have seen before and wish we would have done. So I think that's very helpful for everyone on this call. And if anyone has any last minute questions, you can put them in the chat. But if not, that kind of sums it up for tonight. So I want to thank everyone for attending. And again, if you guys want to add us on LinkedIn or anything, or reach out to us with questions, I think we'd all be very willing to help you guys. I would say for the last question, talking to your academic advisor about internships, definitely they have a lot of resources and they know other students who have had other internships that they can kind of point you in the right direction to. So definitely starting that conversation now is always going to be beneficial.
Yeah, another thing about internships, I know that when I was there, that the program had relationships with alumni, and so then alumni would be really great about reaching back out saying, we're actually looking for an intern. Do you have anyone in mind? So being in contact with alumni, working in areas that you're interested in is definitely beneficial.
I actually just had a URI alumni who like works in my or lives in my town reach out to me. We don't know each other, and I referred her for a position at my company. So just like you never know.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right, I think that about wraps it up. So again, thank you guys all for joining the call and thank you to our alumni for attending tonight. I think that was very beneficial for everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for everyone for joining.
Yeah, nice to talk to you guys. Let me know when we're doing this again.
Sure.
Let me know who takes Aaron Edmonds' place, please, because I'd love to
I
start
know. I'm
doing
so
shit.
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah,
God bless whoever that is. They got big shoes to fill.
Big shoes. Big
Yeah.
shoes.
Dr. Dankos might know more about that than me, but
Well, this is a great opportunity for everyone on this call to know to make the connection early and reach out
Yeah.
once the position's filled.
Right in.
definitely shows how much of an impact she had on all of us.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure, didn't Aaron Edmonds contact me for this?
Yeah, so she
So,
kind of transitioned this summer. Yeah.
Uh, God bless. Well,
tell her we miss her, I guess.
do you know who it is?
She's not far away, so we can maintain get her contacts and keep interact. She just moved to the building right next door to us. She's
Yeah.
working with the Metcalf Institute. But right now I'm doing a lot of sort of the teaching that she was doing.
Mhm.
And then Dr. Bretlock and the Office of Experiential Education is doing a lot of the independent study internship networking. But I will be running Rhody road trips this J term, so that's still happening.
Oh, the best. Did you do that, Hannah?
I did not know.
Oh
I
my
wish
gosh,
I
that
did, but
was
I
the
just live too
best.
far away.
Yeah, true. You had to be around, kind of. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the best. I thought that was like the best class ever. And you went on a little road trip and you went to all the different pharmaceutical companies in Rhode Island. And like we did
Wow.
like went to Farmeron, which was Rhodes Pharmaceuticals back that got like bought out or whatever. And then we
Oh,
did
okay.
sales to do like pharmaceutical sales. We went to Butler where I did my internship to do like clinical. So it was a very helpful course.
I think she had a course. It wasn't that, but she had a course on like presenting yourself. To where like
Yeah.
we did a class with her where it was like a gen ed or something. But we went over our LinkedIn profile, our resume building, stuff like that. But she never took me anywhere. So I'm gonna have some words for her, I guess.
Was
But
that BPS 250? It was like a
I think
one credit
so.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
like
took that
had to
course too.
take, but she's the best. So I was happy to take it. Her and Theorem, I take any class. I don't care how many credits or when it was. That was a fun class.
I guess it depends. Like it
Whatever
kind
Yeah.
of
whatever they'll give you and pays the bills.
yeah, it kind of depends. Like a research position is usually lower than like I would say like maybe a big industry position job, but I would say for that, you go on Reddit and you read what they pay people or like Glassdoor, you can look up people with your like your position and how many years you've been working or your experience range or whatever, and it usually generates like a pretty on average number. But I would say coming out of college, always don't get your hopes super high. You know, but you'll just set yourself up to get let down. So I would say shoot for the ground, and then anything you get will sound really great.
I
That's
will
great.
say that. So I contracted for a year. I didn't get paid very much, but I built my resume so much that when I went to my next job, I got paid substantially more. Like it was a very large jump. So having a certain level of experience and having good references helps a lot for the next jobs down the line. You just need to get your foot in the door, learn, prove yourself, and then you can start to ask for more.
Yeah.
And it definitely varies because I had friends who were working post grad, but they were in academic jobs, which pay a little bit less than industry jobs. And then going back to grad school, definitely don't get paid very much, but that's very well known. That's very public information. I can look
Yeah.
up what the stipends are for a grad student.
Yeah.
Typically, STEM majors do have better stipends at least.
We're good to end this. I'm gonna stop the recording now.